Bitch, you thought I was done? I got 2 more pages.
I just took a DNA test, turns out I'm 100% that bitch.
Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Unless you are new here, then welcome to my channel. My name is Courtney Owl. How are you doing? So today I'm doing my first true crime video. I recently took a break from YouTube and kind of focused myself on like what kind of content I wanted to make. I gave myself time to be creative and I have a lot of fun content coming up. But today I'm doing my first true crime video. I love learning about true crime. I think it's really interesting. I don't think I could ever pursue it as a career choice, but it is very interesting and I spend a lot of my free time learning about true crime, watching true crime shows on Investigation Discovery. What inspired me to do today's story is a podcast called My Favorite Murder. It's probably where I'm going to get a lot of my murder ideas from, or my true crime ideas from. I literally listen to that podcast every single day, every time I'm in the car, when I'm cleaning my room, when I'm doing homework, things like that. I'm always listening to My Favorite Murder. It's my favorite podcast. It's by the network Exactly Right, which is owned by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. If you want to listen to their podcast or any of their other podcasts on the Exactly Right network, the link is down below. So today we are going to be talking about the murder of Carol Stuart. I love murders like this. I love modern murder. I love like late 80s, early 90s murders. Those are like the best. I sound crazy. I can't even explain it without sounding absolutely insane. So in the fall of 1989, Carol Stuart was a tax attorney and her husband Charles Stuart was a manager at a clothing furrier, which is a fur clothing company, if that wasn't already made obvious. The couple lived in Boston and they were expecting their first child. On October 23rd, 1989, the couple were driving home from a childbirthing class in the Roxbury neighborhood of Boston when, according to Charles, a black gunman forced himself into the car when they were at a stoplight. The gunman then made them drive down the road a little bit and robbed them and then ended up shooting both of them. So Charles was shot in the stomach and Carol was fatally shot in the head. So Charles calls 911, but it actually takes him 12 minutes to actually tell the operator where they are, and it is originally thought that Charles took so long because he was in shock. Something interesting about this crime in particular is that in the late 80s, early 90s, I think, I don't know, don't quote me, there was a show called Rescue 911, which is kind of like a older version of Live PD. Cameramen would follow first responders around and they were following the Boston first responders on this particular night. Considering that Rescue 911 was following the Boston emergency medical team that night, the crime scene is heavily documented with lots of videos and lots of pictures and things like that. Carol died just hours after being shot and her unborn baby was born via C-section just hours after the accident, and they named him Christopher. So Christopher unfortunately died 17 days after being born due to oxygen deprivation and other complications with being born prematurely and trauma in the accident. So now we're going to dive into the investigation aspect. So in 1989, America was at the height of their crack epidemic. So Charles' statement that a black gunman came to their car, took over the car, made them drive down the road, and robbed them wasn't really far-fetched, especially for the area that they were in. And with that being said, police started searching for a black male that fit the description that Charles put in his statement. Following the incident, Charles was hospitalized for 6 weeks and required 2 surgeries due to the injuries that he had. And during that time, doctors and police kind of came to a conclusion that none of his wounds or injuries were self-inflicted, so if they had him as a suspect, they could narrow it down and cross him out as a suspect. In the following weeks, police rounded up a group of men that fit Charles' description of the assailant, and on December 28th, Charles picked Willie Bennett out of the lineup. This is where things start to get a little bit spicy, so hold on to your pants. The case against Willie Bennett abruptly fell apart when Charles's brother Matthew goes to the police station and identifies Charles as Carol Stuart's killer. Matthew admitted to police that he had drove to the crime scene to help his brother commit what Matthew had thought was insurance fraud. Upon Matthew's arrival to the crime scene, he found Carol that had been shot and he also saw that his brother had been shot. Charles had shot himself and his wife to make it look like a carjacking. He gathered a bag of valuables such as Carol's wedding ring, her jewelry, some of his nice things, and some money, and his debit cards, credit cards, stuff like that, and also the gun that he used to shoot Carol and himself, and gave it to Matthew to hide. Matthew took the bag of valuables and the gun and threw them off a nearby bridge. So a little side note that is also kind of important to this story, Charles blamed the carjacking on a black male, and since that wasn't the case, it raised racial tensions in Boston even higher than they already were due to the whole crack epidemic and poverty levels in the 80s and stuff like that. Now we're going to talk about the motives behind why Charles would do something like this to his wife. Police eventually found out that Charles was super nervous to become a father. Specifically, he was nervous that Carol, after the baby was born, would not go back to work, forcing them to lose their financial status. Charles started dating a co-worker of his, which was later named as Deborah Allen. Deborah Allen, however, denies ever having a relationship with Charles besides a platonic work relationship. Now on to the really juicy part. A couple weeks after Carol's murder, Charles actually received a $100,000 check in the mail, which was payment for the life insurance policy that he had taken out on Carol. On January 4th, Charles met with his lawyer, and hours later, his car was found abandoned with a suicide note inside of it. And unfortunately, Charles' body was discovered the next day. Charles's brother, Matthew, was indicted for insurance fraud and also for obstruction of justice, and in 1992 he pled guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and after parole he was quickly rearrested on a cocaine charge. Fast forwarding to September 3rd, 2011, Matthew was actually found dead in a homeless shelter due to an apparent drug overdose. While I was finding pictures for this video, I came across Showtime's new show called City on a Hill. There's one episode out and it's on every Sunday, and it is loosely based off of Carol Stewart's murder, and it pretty much talks about all the racism that was going on in Boston during this time. So that is my first true crime video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there is a specific crime or murder or anything like that you want me to cover in my next true crime video, let me know by leaving me a comment in the comment section, and check my links because I'm always posting stuff on my Instagram and my Snapchat, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!